Well, hey, Austin. Good to meet you and welcome to Inside Indian Country as a podcast that we like to talk about, what's going on in Indian country and more specifically, those individuals that, um, push forward and progress, areas such as economic development that, something that you're involved in. And so, um, why don't you provide the audience a little bit about yourself, Austin?
Yeah, okay. I'm not shy about my age. 53 years old. And my family is originally from Navajo, New Mexico. The and so, I have a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in business, and have over 30 years of business experience. My whole life I've been around technology, worked for startups, small companies, big companies. I used to work as a consultant doing project portfolio management, IT systems, and then I landed a job here at DDC. And so, yeah, I have four kids, all in their specialty areas that they're educated in, and yeah, I think I have seven grandchildren now or something. So that's a little bit about myself.
Well, hey. Well, hey, thank you, Austin. I know you're a very busy guy. You're the CEO of Diné Development Corporation, 8A arm of the Navajo Nation, and you guys are very busy. And so thank you for making time for us today. When taking a look at DDC, you guys have what you call the mission focused, legacy inspired, and community driven type of strategy and mission. So, can you walk us through for those of that are listening in that maybe don't really know much about DDC and kind of just tell the story and maybe
Yeah.
how it's funded and what you guys are aspiring to do now.
So yeah, DDC is 21 years old. So 21 years ago, the Navajo Nation Council was inspired to create a business arm that really separated the business and politics, right? So we could respond to opportunities quicker, and be able to take advantage of some of the programs out there. And so we've really developed into a mid-tier federal contractor. 8A is only one of the avenues that we pursue, because we attached ourselves to the biggest spender in the world, which is the U.S. government, and then we are diversified underneath there, with doing work in primarily the Air Force and then the in Defense Information Systems Administration (DISA). We have some Army work. We have and so we have a good set of clients in the federal government. We're just over 700 employees, 30 states, 5 countries. Most of our employees are behind military fences, pounding keyboards, doing all facets of IT, whether it be cybersecurity, cloud migrations, SharePoint development, large scale system development. And so we do all sorts of work in the federal government, primarily IT, a little bit of environmental engineering, and so and then we have a professional services arm. Our IT footprint's about 94, 95% of that. So we're really considered an IT company.
Mm.
11 companies, and we go to market together. So we go to market as a family of companies, and we go out there and compete on federal contracts.
Okay.
So, um,
So, so what was the kind of strategy to, as you mentioned, here in your explanation that it was, it seems that you guys are pretty well diversified, at least, for the most part. And um, what what kind of made you guys think to be, a little more diversified than maybe just focusing on one specific market or service line, if you will. But what kind of opened you guys up to get involved in IT space, engineering, and professional services?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that our revenues could come from different sources, and I'll give a good example. Okay, like through administration changes, whether Republican or Democrat, right? They spend differently. So when the Republicans are in office, there's more military spending, there's more defense spending, and then on the environmental side, if the Democrats are in office, there's more focus on the environment. And so, that was one of the reasons that we chose the environmental piece. But, within the IT space, there's also a lot of, you know, a lot of differentiation between the services that we offer, because we offer everything from low level PC tech support all the way up to data scientists and data engineers. So that that really covers us to make us more competitive, so we can also shape the work with our customers. So we've attached our customers through great performance, great CPAR scores, and really develop those relationships so we can add on to the work, or just help the customer fulfill their mission. So
Nice. So almost like a one-stop shop, if you will, right? To provide services and be that kind of service provider for them, right?
yes.
Oh, okay, great, great.
So, and then if I could add one more thing, which is when the council created DDC, most of the enterprises and corporations focus on Navajo land and resources. DDC was envisioned to be that diversified approach to go off reservation. So I describe my job to people as grab as much money off reservation and bring it home for economic development.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
basically we work in a services model where we bill the government for every hour that an employee works on their contracts, and then we get the profit off the top. So it's really a volume game with the federal government. So that's why we're in 30 states and 5 countries, and it's just part of the model that we have developed.
Yeah, yeah. No, something like this started, 20 years ago. Obviously, guys, you guys have been doing this a long time. So, and as you mentioned, administrations change, so spending habits change, so the type of industries you get into, have to adjust to that. One of the biggest things that are kind of floating around out there right now is AI, and really, how is that affecting your decision and strategy now, moving forward as the CEO?
So actually, we embrace it quite a bit. So we've adopted an AI first strategy, even to the fact that we want every single employee in our organization to be certified at a level of AI. So that's one example. But we have a back end focus, and then we have a front end focus. So the back end focus really has helped us operationalize it, become more efficient. And I'll give you an example. We write proposals on a daily basis, and we've increased our proposal output by about 2.5, maybe 3 times our output. And so by uploading everybody's resumes, uploading all of our past performance, uploading our capabilities, uploading our white papers, every piece of information that we could upload to our secure AI area, and then we go out and source opportunities, and it writes our opportunities for us. It only gets it about 60 to 80% right, because we do have to have that human in the loop to look at it, make sure it looks good, do modifications, right? And so it has helped our throughput on being able to respond to more work. So we were able to respond to over $1 billion in proposals last year. which is massive for us. And then on the front end, we have developed over 20 AI enablers that we're calling them. Okay. So we have enablers that rewrite old code like COBOL into new Java code to help with the mainframe modernization efforts. We have AI enablers that go out and look at your network and see if you're deficient in your security or your certifications. We have tools that go out there and say who's the best customer or who's the best partner for an opportunity. So there's a proposal out there that sizes up the scope, and then we match it against our capabilities, and it goes out there and through our partner network, it evaluates who's the best partner and why, or who's not the best partner and why, right? So that helps us operationalize it. So we have really embraced AI to a high degree. So, and then with the way the government is spending money too, right, in these AI pools of we're poised and ready. So if you think of sole source as one space, and then you got AI space, and then you got defense spending that's non-sole source, right? There's a lot of diversification strategies and things that we are looking at just to be able to be properly diversified, but deliver that lasting value.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. I think being able to basically 10x your team's efforts with looking for proposals, looking for opportunities, and integrating AI to make those connections almost like 24 hours a day is going to definitely be a game changer and probably give you a chance to capture a lot of that market when you can. So as far as just you talk about back end and front end and your people, is there really a real good intentionality from your group to hire travel members or look for travel talent and bring them on and teach them? Seems like you guys are doing a lot of great things. Just kind of curious on what your kind of process is with that.
Yeah, with the model that we that we operate under, right? That's one of our toughest challenges is being able to hire our Navajo peoples, because traditionally in the contracts that we go after, right, you have a lot of incumbents who have sat in that seat for 30 years, right? They've been in the computer field for 30 years, and they just switch badges, and so but we so that's one challenge that we are attempting to overcome, is finding the Navajos out there that have the skill sets, have the educations, the certifications, and a good amount of experience to apply to the contracts. And then the second item that we run into is security clearances. So you're kind of in the chicken and egg scenario with security clearances. You need the clearance to get a job, but you need a job to get the clearance, right? And so and then we're trying to reach out to the youth. So I went and spoke to some high schools and told them about these challenges, saying, hey, you really need to make good choices now, because they go off your work history, off of what people opinion is about you, off of your online postings, right? Off of your job history, or do you have any run-ins with the law or anything? So they really look at your full profile, because here at DDC we do have the opportunity to execute cleared work, and nationally important work. That's another challenge. And then the third challenge is getting that off-reservation exposure, because a lot of our workforce is out on the East Coast, out of Dayton, Ohio, or Virginia, or the Washington D.C. area, right, or down in Montgomery, Alabama. those are big hubs for the government and our employees. And so, finding Navajos willing to go to those areas is also a challenge. But we have developed several programs over time with mixed success. But right now we are taking all that past experience that we've done in the past and really rolling out a new program this year, which is the Navajo Career Pathways Program, right? And this is really to identify Navajos before they come into the organization, making sure that they are equipped, but also making sure, and we learned this the hard way, to teach our mentors how to be mentors, right? Because it takes certain steps, it takes a methodology to be able to cultivate talent of any kind.
Yeah.
And then also at the board level, we have rolled out, and we just had our first series of sessions with a Navajo Leadership Academy. So we've identified 6 Navajos for potential board members with resumes that are very lengthy, and they should be proud of them. But they have taken a series of classes or sessions to be able to teach them best practices of being on the board. Why does the board exist? What are the fiduciary responsibilities? What should you expect as a board member? What should you do as a board member? And so, because we come in deficient to a lot of our board exposure, and we have to really develop that over time, and balancing operating 11 subsidiaries in a secure space,
Mm-hmm.
right? Diversified work, right? What type of skill sets do you need for a board? What kind of connections do you need, right? So we're trying to really perfect this tribal model. We just rolled out this Navajo Leadership Academy.
Right. Well, that's cool. That sounds really cool. I mean, I know that in Indian countries, sometimes that's the, I guess, turn of the knob that can really define success, or, it's sometimes just failure, is having a good executive board that understands strategy and is willing to let the team do what they need to do to meet those goals, and sometimes those aren't clear, and having that type of, training, I think it's a good idea, really good thing to have. So that's pretty cool. Now, as you talk about success, like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you guys generally measure that? In some of our previous podcasts, we talked about success, and sometimes it's not always measured just specifically on dollars, right? And there's always some other
Yes.
variable or attribute, such as, maintaining tribal enrollment, employment, that's one thing. If it's not an industry that sits well with the community, maybe that's not an investment, even though the dollars make so much sense, So I was just kind of curious, as you guys are growing and you're looking at opportunities and looking at, what's out there for you guys, are those the type of questions that you answer to, just to ensure that, hey, you're measuring success and everybody understands what success is for DDC?
So yeah, there's really 2 aspects to measuring success. The first is we're very structured on our strategic plan, and just a business management approach, right? We have a strategic plan, we have budgets, we have business plans for each one of the subsidiaries and markets, right? And so we really do this concerted effort that we measure our strategic plan very through metrics and through goals. So there's a great process that we have, and we just finished our last 5-year strategic plan and met all of our goals, and we embarked on a new one. And so that part is, there's revenues, there's profits, there's number of employees, there's your diversification of your customers, there's good scores from your customers, there's but really the pillar that's near and dear to my heart is how we deliver for the Navajo Nation, right? And so, there's dollar amounts on dividends, but also there's just contributing to the Navajo economy. That's how I like simply putting it. Whether it be jobs or sponsorships, or we actually have a new building in Dayton, Ohio, which is closest to our biggest customer, and we bought the building, and it's called the Navajo Code Talker building. So we have a a small. I'm not. We have a display about the code talkers that give their history, and the community loves it out there. Um, but that's also another measure of success. Another measure of success is how we're reaching out to the community, and we're partnering with companies like Change Labs and the NCAIED and their Apex accelerator programs, where we are lending our expertise and knowledge to Navajo businesses that are going into federal contracting. We're sharing everything from our strategy to our ways of doing business. To we've even partnered with Navajo companies as prime and subcontractor relationships.
Right.
And so, we teach them about business development, about how your back office support should look, right? What to expect from types of proposals. So we're out there sharing our knowledge with the Navajo community, and that's that. We put some investment there. So we just want to keep contributing more to the Navajo economy.
Right. Well, that's cool. Well, as we wrap it up with this, this last question here, and one of the bigger events, coming this March is going to be, the Reservation Economic Summit, RES, and I know that you guys are a big proponent of that, and and sponsor of that. So, from that standpoint, really, what is your thoughts on events like that, and also how does that really tie to your growth and development for economic development for the Navajo Nation?
So we attend events like that. We've been a long-standing sponsor at the Reservation Economic Summit. That has helped us cultivate relationships. We've partnered with other tribals because it's part of the strategy. Because in the sole source world, right, once you're done executing a contract, you got to change it by a certain percentage or hand it off, or it has to be won by a competitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we develop these relationships to hand off contracts to each other, so we can keep at least half of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these are trusted tribal partners who are doing economic development, right? And we have an understanding between us to be able to keep part of the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very common strategy. But in events like Res Conference, it has helped us help us gain trust, because you can also look at it as just pure competition, right? You can hide your company secrets and be more competitive next time, right? And another big reason that we go to Res Conference is to see who's out there from the Navajo community, and be able to tell them about the DDC, because we're still kind of relatively unknown. Even when I got hired here, I didn't even know who DDC was, right? The first question I got from a recruiter was, "Are you Navajo?" And I thought that was kind of a weird question, but okay, I'll bite on it, right? So, they matched up my background with the recruiting opportunity, and then and then also just to be engaged in Indian country, because we have forged partnerships with like NACA, the Native American Contractors Association, and with tribals and ANCs, Alaska Native Corporations, and Hawaiian owned organizations, that we've all teamed together to be one voice. And and Res Conference has sessions for that, and we get to learn about what each other's doing, but also I forge relationships with other native CEOs across this nation and Canada,
Yeah.
to where
Yeah.
I can call them and say, hey, this is happening. What are you guys doing about it? Like for instance, there was a big debate about the Department of Defense changing their name to the Department of War. And that didn't sit right with me, being a Navajo, because of our long history of trauma with the Department of War. Yeah. And then but we had an organizational debate, right? And so I utilized my other tribal colleagues and said, hey, what are you guys doing? Because at the end of the day, we've got to generate revenue for the nation, and we had to adapt. How painful that is to be able to, we have to adapt, because if we don't respond in our presentation or our proposals, if we keep Department of Defense and they're saying Department of War, that automatically will discount you, right? To where you can't generate money. So I was able to communicate that across the organization to say, hey, um, we are going to do this shift, right? And here's the examples why. Not only are other tribals doing it, but here's also the history for the non-Navajos, just to be aware of, right? To make sure that when we think about DDC, it is a Navajo-owned company, and our employees really embrace that. So there's many avenues that we have kept our culture from, all the way from recruiting, all the way to their last day of employment. We have an all hands meeting, and we go over Navajo word of the day, and there's a talker series where we go into culture. We introduce them to all sorts of cultural significant events. So we're very proud of what we've done at DDC.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, really sounds like you guys been able to take it from when it's first established 20 years ago, grow it to the many different service lines and verticals and IT, personal professional services, and at the same time always kind of come back and reconnect that, hey, this is a Navajo-owned company, and we're going to continue to follow that philosophy. So that's pretty cool. That's real awesome. Austin, hey, I just want to say thank you for jumping on with us today, and looking forward to future conversations, especially when you guys, grow twice as big here soon, and with everything you got going on, man. So thank you so much for jumping on today.
Okay, no, I appreciate all your time, Wes, and all that you do for Indian country. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.